We are living in extremely difficult times. The coronavirus and the pandemic hasn't been limited. It's virtually touched every part of the world. And that's not the only thing, because we've also got major economic problems coming from it. We're faced with unusual storms and earthquakes. And all these are, I do believe, signs of the coming of the Lord. And I think that's what we've got to face. We have to face the fact that to be called as Christians doesn't mean we live either in isolation or in luxury. And I want to bring you quite an unusual thought today. And I'm going to read to you from Psalm 63. And interestingly enough, this first verse was probably my favorite verse of all verses in the Bible in my teenage years. And this is what it says. Of course, it's the psalmist, it's David. O God, thou art my God. Early will I seek thee. My soul thirsteth for thee. My flesh longs for you in a dry and thirsty land where there's no water, to see your power and your glory as I have seen you in the sanctuary. Now, the reason that it was so important to me was because really, it was my desire in those days to see the power and the glory of God. And I was a young man, and so literally it was, early will I seek you. And yes, I was seeking the Lord. And I did have some very remarkable experiences early in my life. I don't know whether I've often told the real story of my conversion. How I came to Christ, I was just 8, it was 1940. And around about the time, it was Easter, and it was about the time of my 8th birthday. And I was away with my father. My father was preaching at a convention down in Bournemouth. And my father wasn't the only preacher. There was a young evangelist, and he preached. And apparently, when the evangelist made the appeal for conversion, both my brother and I raised our hands, signifying that we wanted to come to Christ. So that night, when we got back to the home where we were staying, my father turned to us and spoke to my brother. Of course, my twin brother is older than I am, as he keeps reminding me, and said to him, "Do you want to accept Christ?" And my brother said yes. And so my father prayed with him. And then my father looked at me and said, "Right, are you ready?" And the strange thing was, I said no. I was quite clear. I said, "No, I don't want to do it now." It's obvious that at that point I was not under conviction, and I don't have any actual personal memory of having raised my hand. So my father left. He didn't argue, didn't question, and I got into bed. But I couldn't sleep, because even at that young age, I knew that if Christ were to return, my twin brother, my parents would go to heaven, and I would be shut out. And I was under such conviction that I had to get out of bed and kneel down and say, "Oh, Lord, don't leave me out. I want what my brother has. I want to know you. I want to accept you." So it was a very strong conviction that led me to Christ. And I always remember that I got up the next morning and everything was different. The whole world outside was different. The sky was a brighter blue. The sun was shining more brightly. The trees were different, more vivid in their colors. The whole world had changed. Of course, it was a long time before I realized it wasn't the world that changed, it was me. So you understand from an early age that I did have some quite major experiences. It wasn't long after that again, we lived in London, and my father was the senior pastor of a big church in Clapham in London. And I know that shortly after that, the church was totally destroyed by a bomb. That was London. And before that happened, so you can almost put the time down to 1940, 41, that I had such an experience in that church. It was a Sunday morning, and the church, of course, in those days, the church was absolutely packed out, crowded, with virtually no room, standing room only. And I can remember I was standing while the worship was going on, and suddenly something happened. It was as if a wave of glory, a wave of power swept over me. And young as I was, I had such an experience of the power of God.